Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Nicole. And then hello
Hi.
to everyone who's watching this episode of Localize the World. I am your host, Lynn, and I'm joined today by my friend and colleague and classmate, Nicole Henry. Nicole, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi. I'm a localization project manager at LAI, and I'm really excited to be on this podcast talking about Pokemon. It's childhood right there.
Yeah, so okay, Nicole already gave it away. We're talking about Pokemon Movie 2000. So I don't know if you guys remember, it's the one with Lugia and Ash is the chosen one who like saves the world with the help of Team Rocket. And he saves the three legendary birds. What is it? Moltres, Zapdos, and oh, what's the last one?
Articuno.
Articuno. So he saves them and he saves the world. So that's the movie we're going to talk about today. But not only are we going to talk about the movie 2000, I think it's called The Power of One, right?
Yes.
So we're also going to talk about Revelation Lugia. Have you
Hmm.
guys heard of that movie? It's the same movie. It's the same movie, but in Japanese. And so that's why I invited Nicole over because Nicole.
Well, I am fluent in both Japanese and English, so I am planning to work in mostly Japanese projects if I can. And so I kind of think of myself as kind of a little bit of a knowledgeable person for this.
You're a pretty
Woo!
knowledgeable
I'm
person.
excited.
I don't know that much Japanese at all. So that's why Nicole is here to help us understand the differences between the English version and the Japanese version of this very old movie that's still very, very interesting. Also, this will be released like maybe a couple months after, the whole Pokemon story ended. I don't know if you know. Do you know, Nicole?
Yes, of
The news is
course. I
so sad.
cried.
I'm tired too. Like I missed that. I haven't watched it in like years, but I watch it on and off. And like
Oh
just to
my
see the story come to a completion. It's
God. I
like,
cried. I cried when he
oh,
won and became the champion. And then I cried when the series was confirmed to be ending. And now I'm crying knowing that he's gone. It's so sad.
I hope that
My eyes are dry now. They're all dried
just,
out from
you're
crying too
just
much.
getting old. That's what it is. And I think what's really like what hits is Pokemon was released around the same time we were born.
Yes.
So it feels like a part of us is we're transcending to another stage of life because that part of our childhood of ourselves is kind of gone. But anyways,
Oh
moving
no. I
moving
used
on
to
from
this
wait,
is
go
the this
ahead,
is
go
the
ahead.
awkward part that might get cut off later, but I
What?
used to have a crush on Ash when I was a little kid. And now he's gone and he's still only 10 years old and here I am, a full-grown adult. Man, the time passes so slow for him.
Time passes so slow for Ash. She's still 10 years old. Yeah.
Unreal.
All right. Our ages have been revealed. Anyways.
You already
Anyways.
revealed them. It was close to it was released when Pokemon, I mean, when we were pretty much born, right? So
Yeah.
we already know how old we are.
Yeah. Anyways, so today we're gonna look at both of the movies, so the English version and the Japanese version, and we're going to just talk about the differences that they made or did not make in the movies. And we're going to talk about, media localization, audiovisual localization, how translators work, subtitling, dubbing, all sorts of things. So it's going to be very fun. And we're going to rewatch some clips. I just think, just to start off, like, I just think the English version is hilarious.
Of
And that's the
course,
one version that
yes.
we grew up with, right? The American English version.
Yes.
Did you ever watch the Japanese version, Nicole?
I watched it once and I actually kind of was like, this is not the same. It's not the same for me.
Okay, yeah. So we can talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Um, so we're gonna start off with the first scene. Let's see. Do you want to start off with the Japanese version first or the English version?
That's a good question. I feel like we should do Japanese first and then the English one, and then we can talk about the changes that were done in between them since Japanese came first.
Okay, sounds good. Oh, I need to turn on the subtitles.
島だわ。
助かった。
いい感じにゃ。でもないみたい。
え？
結局いつもの。何や感じ
Oh, shoot. All right.
Amazing. I love it.
Okay, so that was the Japanese version.
That was the Japanese version, yes.
Let's check out the English version.
An island!
In a storm.
I've seen this movie. Oh? Do we have carp insurance?
Huh?
We're about to be fillet of fish.
All right, we'll stop there.
Absolutely iconic. Absolutely iconic.
So
The Japanese
iconic.
is funny, but the lines of the English are just iconic.
Okay, what makes the Japanese funny? Because I didn't get it, right? Because it just says an island, we're safe, or maybe we're not.
Yeah.
The
In the
visual
Japanese
itself was
one,
funny.
oh yeah, of course. The Japanese one, they're kind of referencing that they always end up in this situation. So they're saying, oh, this again, kind of thing. Of course, the scene's funny by itself, but they're like, we're always getting to this point in our lives. So that's kind of what they're referencing, every other previous point. I kind of
Mhm.
like the way the English one did not make it sound like, this again. Instead, they're like, oh, we're fillet of fish.
I love that part because it's so specific to the audience, like the American audience, right? McDonald's filet o fish, like everybody knows that. And
Mhm.
it also, like kids go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
So I feel like the kids would really relate to that.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's actually a huge thing of the 90s anime in specific. Like because I don't know if you're aware, but in the 90s anime wasn't treated as anime at all. It was more like another cartoon for
I
Americans.
felt that. I feel that. Like
Yeah.
Digimon
Hmm.
or the other ones, yeah.
Yeah, so like
Or
Sailor Moon,
Yu-Gi-Oh. Wait,
Dragon Ball,
Was
Digimon.
Yu-Gi-Oh Japanese too? It was like
Yes.
a Japanese anime, right? Okay.
Yeah, all of those shows when they were being localized back before localization really had a big like world term that everyone was aware of. When it was being localized, the main idea was to make sure it looked as or sounded as not foreign as possible. So they focused a lot on referencing American things, changing any sort of scenery or ideas that might be too foreign into American concepts, fearing that their American children might not understand the references and it wouldn't connect and also might confuse their own cultures. As we
Mhm.
know, that didn't work out as well. But that's why we have things like Brock saying jelly filled donut instead of rice ball in the
Oh
original
my God. You know
series.
what? I think in one of our previous episodes, Linka and I also talked about that.
Yeah, Pokemon was a huge one that had a lot of focus on making sure any Japanese references basically were removed so that they didn't confuse the audience with their reference of rice balls because who ate rice balls in the 90s?
Mhm. Well, what I do like though is probably nowadays because there's so much globalization, people traveling, like people are more aware of these different cultures and what they eat and etc. So
I love
nowadays
that
it's
too.
probably okay for him to just say rice ball, right?
Oh yeah, I
So I
think it
love
would be
how
definitely.
things have changed over the years. Like we've
I do too.
gotten so much more exposure. But going back to the scene, I love how Jesse's like, do we have carp insurance? Like
Yes.
it's kind of a play, right? Because it like car insurance and their magic carp is kind of like a car for them, right? It's like a
They're
submarine
absolutely massive
boat.
magic carp.
But I just thought that was so hilarious. Like, how did they come up with that stuff? Like it fits so well. And so it fits the child, young adult audience, but it also fits like the adult audience who's watching this and they're like, they understand it.
Yes. I loved that.
Yeah. So that was our first scene. I love that difference. Our second scene is where they meet Melody for the first time.
Oh my God. I think I remember this.
So I'm gonna find the clip really quickly. So this is the part where they meet Melody for the first time, and one quick thing that I find interesting is they've changed quite a few things with her, like still trying to keep her personality, but they changed a lot of the words. And I want to talk about that after I show it.
Okay.
So let's check out the Japanese version first. You see the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start from here. If it'll start.
ピーヒャラやっているわけ？引退よ。私子供じゃないんだから。お祭り娘は妹に引き継いだわ。妹。何が妹よ。誰がお祭り娘よ。お姉さんの妹に生まれた私は不幸よ。どうしたのよその格好。お祭りの衣装は？やあよ、そんなダサいの着たくないわ。どうせお祭りは夕方からでしょ。これだもん。あ、これうちの妹フルーラ。これでも巫女さん。お祭りの主役ってんだから時代は変わったわよ。で、こちらポケモントレーナー。
If you listen really closely, did you hear like when she's like bending her neck?
Yeah. I was like, this 10-year-old has bad neck issues already.
All right, so that was the Japanese version. Is there anything that you noticed? Like,
She's so sassy already. Like her that was for Japanese culture, that's a straight up like sassy girl right there.
what part of it makes her so sassy? Aside
way
from
that
her actions.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Her actions. Well, it's the tone of her voice and like kind of the way that she's talking to her older sister. She's very much like completely in front of other people, in fact, completely making everything sound so boring and like, oh, why should I even bother with this? And she's wearing uncultured clothing and she's like, ugh, I wish I wasn't born with like you as my older sister. And it's just, it feels like such a sassy thing for someone to say, especially in Japanese culture.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So now let's see the English version, the American version, and see if she's still as sassy or if she's even sassier.
Oh my goodness.
Right here.
Today, this is my favorite island holiday. Are you gonna be the star of the show again? No, I'm too old to be the festival maiden anymore. So this year my little sister's gonna take over for me. Wonder where she could— I'm right here! The only one not wearing some stupid costume. You'd think after a few centuries you'd have outgrown this dorky ritual. It's our tradition. You should be honored to take part. Don't worry, I'll play my role in the big legend. I've only seen you do it like a zillion times. Just be there. Well, unfortunately, that's my little sister. Her name is Melody. But don't get fooled. She's not always this adorable. Who's this?
All right.
Oh my god, I forgot just how
She's not always this adorable.
there's so much. Okay, that's even more sass, and it's like disregarding and completely like almost hating on the tradition, which wasn't there in the Japanese. Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
it was there a little bit in the Japanese. She's wearing her normal clothing, saying like, "Oh, I'll be ready by nighttime. Like, don't you worry." But in the English, she's just like, "Why don't you just forget about that?" Like, it's been a couple centuries already. It just sounds like, wow, this culture.
What would happen if you said that, like, in the Japanese version?
In the Japanese, oh my god, I think that you would probably never be invited to do it again. Or if they do it, they'd probably be like apologists about it, like, oh, I'm so sorry for her attitude, I'm so sorry that she's acting like this right now, she doesn't mean it, she's just, she's at that age. Like, I feel like there'd be a lot of attempts to cover up, because I don't think that's acceptable at all, the way that she was handling that, and her own sister being like, that's unfortunately my sister.
Yeah, and I like how in the American version they added the sarcasm, right, between the sisters, right? She's not
Yeah.
always this adorable,
Yeah,
but I don't think in the Japanese version they have that kind of humor
no, they
as
didn't have
much.
they didn't have any of the feeling of like the sibling sarcasm between them the whole time in the Japanese. It felt very Japanese. I don't know how to explain that, but it felt like, maybe they were looking at each other like, you brat, but on the outside at least they had like a respectable amount of like respect for each other. The English one, oh my god, I felt like I was talking to my own sibling there.
Right, like because in one, the Japanese one, she's just like commenting on the tacky clothing, right? The
Yes.
clothing that they wear. But in the American one, she's like literally just throw
The
the whole
whole
thing away. Oh my
ceremony.
God, it's so much more.
Throw the whole man away. Yes, it felt like that. It felt way more like serious. Like she didn't find it at all appealing. There was no love for the culture or anything. And I'm like, how can you live on an island and not love the culture that brings people there? Oh goodness, it makes me feel like I'm watching Kimi no Nawa again. The way that main girl wanted to leave the island, the area so badly because it just was so focused
Oh,
on.
it's been a while since I watched that one. So I
Oh,
had to remember. It's Your Name, right?
yeah.
Oh, it came out so long ago.
Oh no, I feel old
It
now.
came out so long ago.
Wait, we're watching a movie from 2000. What do you
I
mean it came out so
know.
long ago?
All right. All right. Our next scene is when they have their dinner banquet and Melody is wait, actually, no. Before we go there, I wanted to mention the name change.
Oh yeah,
So
of
in the
course.
Japanese version, her name is Furura.
Hmm.
Furura. And now she's Melody in the English version. Why do you think they made that change?
I'm almost certain it's a pun of some kind, even if I can't recognize it. It makes me think of the sound of a flute almost in the way that her name is, and then of course melody in English. It makes me feel like it's a reference to her job as a shrine maiden, is what I'm getting from that. I'd have to look that up specifically.
Mm. Well, probably also like they thought to change her name because like Flula
Sounds terrible.
sounds kind of weird in English. Like Flula.
Yeah.
I don't know how
I
it sounds in Japanese. Like, is that a weird name? It's probably not an actual name in
Furuda.
Japanese, right?
Furuda sounds cute, but it's definitely not a real Japanese name. But Flula sounds like you have the flu.
Ah, okay. That's a good point. Even if you can see like, oh, flute, right?
Yeah,
But also flu, you probably wouldn't want that name.
yeah,
So they probably changed it to Melody, which is, a common name as well.
yeah. And also Flula makes you think of like old lady names like Agnes, Flula.
I can see that. I can see that.
I'm sorry, any Agneses that are watching. I didn't mean that. Your name is very beautiful.
Oh, I didn't think of that. But yeah, that could though both of those reasons. That's probably why they changed the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
like those types of like changes, stylistic changes, names, the name of like people, but also places is
yeah.
important for localization.
It was definitely important in the 90s. And you can see it again in all the previous shows. Like I think the biggest ones you can see like Sailor Moon. Everyone knows Serena and Amy, Lita. So their their names were like Makoto and Usagi and all those other names.
Right.
And the names were just so foreign in the 90s that rather than if we were to watch that show in the 90s and we heard the name Usagi, we'd probably not blink. But the adults are like, what kind of name is that? Like who names
Is
their kid
that?
Usagi? Like that's such a foreign sounding name. And it just feels like in the 90s in particular, they just wanted everything to sound Western. Which is where we get Ash, Misty, Brock, which I love their names, by the way. I'm not sure why they chose Ash for Ash. It makes it sound like Rise from the Ashes.
Yeah.
But Misty and Brock are very obvious.
But I will say, like in this movie, they did incorporate his name, Ash, in the legend itself. So like
Amazing.
that was so cool.
I know. The movie is just amazing. I love when they're able to make references to their own choices. They're like, oh, we
Mhm.
named him Ash. Now let's make the whole prophecy about Ash.
The world turning to ash, right?
Yeah. The
Um,
world turning to ash, but literally.
yeah. But I do think, just like you said, nowadays, because we're so much more globalized than in the 90s, it is okay to use the name of the original name,
Yes.
and people will just go by that name. I think it's coming from a form of like respect to the
Mhm.
original creators and their meaning. Like Squid Game, right? Which is a huge phenomenon. Like they didn't change the names of the people, I think, right? Because K dramas, the
Yeah.
names are so foreign to most people, right?
Yes.
So they didn't just change the name to like an Americanized name. It's just their name. I actually never watched Squid Game, so I don't know what his name is in the
Yeah.
in the drama.
I've
But
never watched it either. But yeah, I think that's a huge like it definitely shows just how much of a non-niche anime has become that we can now watch these shows and like not even blink when someone says their name is Takeshi, which is Brock's name, by the way. Like it's just like so easy to be told that someone's name is Mayuko or something, and it doesn't even bother us anymore. But I do have to say that Pokemon's name choices for English are very fun.
they're
Like
so fun.
Jesse James, you know, for the thief Jesse James, the thief, and then Ash, Misty, Brock, Tracy, who draws. Like it just felt like they put a lot of thought into like what they wanted to have these characters' American names be, or English. American's not fair for me to say. English names. I know there's a lot of countries that use the same names.
Yeah.
But then we have shows like Detective Conan, which was changed to Case Closed because of issues with Conan the Barbarian. In the localization, they couldn't use the name Conan in the name because of that. And they changed the names. I have no idea where they got these names.
What?
So the main character, I think, is the worst example. His name in Japanese is Shinichi, which
Yeah.
means literally like one truth. Even if the kanji is written incorrectly or differently, then the reason he's named Shinichi is because of his whole motto being there is only one truth. So his name is One, and well, Truth One, or and then they changed his name to Jimmy, just Jimmy. I don't know.
So it lost the meaning of his name.
Yeah, it lost the meaning of his name entirely, and that makes the movies harder because there's a movie that actually completely references people's names and uses that as the clues of who's going to get killed next.
Oh.
And so it's just like, how could you name him Jimmy? I don't know. I don't understand why. Maybe you can think of why his name is Jimmy, but I just don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We can always speculate, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't know the minds of the creators. Is it like were the translators able to have access to the any decision making, or was it like a higher up decision who
Definitely
they just
speculation.
thought Jimmy is like a good name? It's like
Jimmy just sounds like someone you can
name.
respect. That's definitely a
Yeah.
detective right there. I prefer
Right.
Misty.
I like, yeah, just what you said, right? Brock, because he's a rock type gym leader. Misty, because it reminds you of the sea of mist, of sea
Mhm.
foam. Like that fits so well, like their names. I think there was so much thought put into all of their names, really.
I don't know why Gary's name is Gary, but I love it. It just sounds like, Gary. It's Gary.
What a punch. Yeah, you want to punch his face.
And I still use his catchphrase that I don't think they have a similar catchphrase in Japanese.
is
That he
it?
says, "Smell you later."
Yeah,
I
love
still
it.
use it. I see someone, and for the first time in a long time, I'll see someone, I'll be like, "Long time no smell," instead of "long time no see," because of Gary Oaks. Oh, Gary Oak, I think, is his actual. I love that. I love the Japanese lines. There's just or English lines. I love the English lines that they just are memorable. I love
Yeah. Pokemon Company.
that. Good job. I mean, you have to think about and respect their naming conventions for their Pokemon even more.
Yeah.
So a lot of thought put into those.
All right. Let's take a look at our next clip. It's when they're having dinner and Melody is explaining the legend
Oh,
behind.
look how cute she is. Oh my goodness. Ash,
I
you gonna
know.
flirt?
Let's see.
Missy's face.
Wait, hold on. Let me.
Oh, she's so mad.
Hey, where am I? Wait, hold on. Let me move away. Let's start. Here's fine. I think here's
Okay.
fine. It's a little
She's
bit.
so mad still. Missy,
I know,
what
she's
happened?
so mad. All right, we're gonna start from here.
天地怒り世界は破滅に向かう時海の神現れ優れたる操り人と共に神々の怒り鎮めんサトシ様 あなたが本当に優れた操り人なら、私たちにその証拠を見せてください。
証拠って。
私フルーラ。
Look at
まあ
Misty.
それは分かってるけど、
勘違いしないでね。これしきたり毎年やってんの。適当にやっちゃって。
フルーラ
証拠ったって難しいこっちゃないわ。沖にある3つの島から3つの宝を持ってきて本島の祭壇に飾ること。そして私が神々に捧げる笛をと吹いて、それでおしまい。
宝ってどこにあるの？
それぞれの島のお社。大丈夫。島まで船は出るし、お社へは階段がついてる。
オッケー、今すぐ行ってみよう。
急ぐことないわ。お祭りは明日まで。明日の朝だっていいのよ。のんびりやっちゃいなさいよ。
今日できることは今日やっておく。善は急げってね。それが俺の、いや、僕の主義なんだ。
よく言うわ。
And it ends with Misty being jealous.
Misty being jealous is probably the peak point of it all, but my god, I heard the change of his use of pronoun from ore to boku in that entire scene.
What does that do?
So ore is a very masculine, almost rude way of calling yourself. If you're in a business setting, you wouldn't use ore to your boss or to anyone really, because it's kind of signifying that you still have like a punkish personality. You're young and youthful, ready to party or ready to fight. Even a lot of the most spunky or fierce characters in anime specifically use ore. So I'm not sure which anime you've seen, but like
Naruto? Does Naruto use ore?
he definitely uses ore. In fact, most of those characters use ore. The one who doesn't, I believe, is Rock Lee, who uses
Oh
boku.
yeah.
Yeah. So Ash's change from ore to boku signifies that he's trying to play a more like hero-esque,
Heroic.
yeah, kind of personality. Like, oh, I will go to those shrines and I will get these specific artifacts because I am destined to do so type of feeling by changing his ore to boku in that one moment. So it's just very interesting to hear it and know that's exactly what they were trying to get at there.
I'd never noticed that. That's very unique.
It is. I love when it happens in your name as well. The girl trying to pretend to be Taki and she's just like, atashi, watashi?
Wait,
Trying to guess.
watashi, is that like more commonly used for with girls?
I would say that most girls use watashi unless you're trying to be a bit spunkier. You'd use atashi. Atashi is very like tom girl-esque, it feels like, or like preppy, sassy feeling. I would guess that Melody probably uses atashi, but I haven't paid attention really to what she uses specifically. But yeah, I have a whole presentation actually on the pronouns of from Japan and what they do for characters and why certain characters use pronouns and how you can tell exactly what kind of character they are based off what they use.
Wow. So like when you translate that into English, you can't really get the same nuance, right? Because
Yeah,
there
you
is no
can't.
such differentiation with saying I.
Yep.
So
Instead, their literal way of speaking has to change. So in the game Undertale, there's a character who was translated to say "Ore-sama," but in English, the way he speaks is "the great papyrus." I am the greatest, I am amazing. And so that's a very Ore-sama-esque kind of personality. And so when they it was translated from English to Japanese, they translated it as Ore-sama with that in mind.
So that's really cool. It's not just in the words that you use that you can translate that meaning, but also in the tone.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really
So
fascinating.
fun.
Let's check out the English version to see what changes they did.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
Right. Let's skip a little bit further.
I actually wanted to know,
Uh-huh.
is the same song played in both versions?
Oh my God, I was gonna make that noticing as well. It is not. they actually play a different song in the English version. They like made up a whole new song.
That's so common in the 90s. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's I think it probably is the attempt to erase the cultural nuances of a foreign song, because every Pokemon song is completely original in the English version, and I wasn't sure if it was the same for the movie or not.
It is. Well, I didn't show it, but earlier, like they always have the opening musical segment, right, for the movies, and the Japanese version and English version are totally different songs.
Yes.
All right, go back to here.
Here shall you take, for between life and death, all the difference you'll make. O chosen one, you must climb to the shrine to right what is wrong, and the world will be healed by the guardian song.
What do I do?
I just told you, Ash.
Yeah, I heard all that stuff, but what do I have to do?
Oh, it won't be very hard, Ash. Not for you. And besides, almost all the chosen ones come back alive. Melody! All you have to do is get these glass balls from 3 islands. One from Fire Island, one from Ice Island, and one from Lightning Island. And you bring them to the shrine back here. And then, I celebrate by playing this song. Then it's over, oh chosen one.
Do I get to wear a cool costume?
Sorry, but it's just come as you are. Besides, you look perfect to me. The handsomest chosen one in years.
Okay, get me a boat and I'm ready.
Oh, there's no hurry. You have all day tomorrow. Tonight's just for the party. Stay, have some fun.
Well, some things are more important than fun. I'm Ash, the chosen one. This is serious. I gotta be responsible.
That's a switch.
And she's still jealous in the American version.
Oh my God, Misty's so obviously jealous. It's
I
amazing.
know.
Love it. Wow, that was different indeed.
So different. What are some things that you notice?
Well, one thing was I feel like Ash is almost dumber in English. Like in Japanese, I think this actually, I'm taking a course on cultural nuances and like how there's like very obvious, you learn through basically everything is assumed in certain cultures, and then other things you have to straight up be explained every detail. And that was one of the biggest things I noticed in Japanese versus English, where in the Japanese one, it was just like, your quest is to find these things from these shrines, and there's no specifics. There's no Fire Island, no Lightning Island, no Ice Island in the Japanese version. It's just the 3 shrines, find the artifacts and bring them back. And then in the English one, she's very specific. She's like, you must go to the 3 shrines of fire and ice and lightning, and you must receive these specifically balls, crystal balls from these shrines and bring them back. And I felt like there was definitely a difference in like the Japanese. It's implied. You don't really need to know exactly what these shapes are or where they are or anything like that, or which one's which. You just need to go to the shrines and get them. And Ash's confusion is more like, so like, do I do
He
it? Like, should I go?
Yeah, he repeats, what do I do? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then in the English one, he's like, so what are you saying? What do you mean by that? What should I do? Like, okay, let's go now. Also, Satoshi's way of saying like, why do tomorrow what you can do today is a very good line for, it's like inspirational to children. Like, always try and get things done when you can, rather than doing it later. And it makes it sound like he's very responsible, which Misty, both versions, she's like, yeah, right. But it's a very good line for the children to hear. But in English, it's just like, no, I gotta do it now.
Yeah,
I'm not about fun.
the more important things than fun, right?
Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess it's a good meaning, but you always want to have a little bit of fun in everything you do. That's not the message. It just sounds like a little bit worse.
Yeah, I think because they connected it with fun, right? Sit down, have fun, enjoy the dinner. And so
Yeah.
they wanted to connect his line to that.
Mhm.
Something as like for me as a writer, like I always try to do that, right? Relate things back to the previous thing. So maybe that's why they took out that quote from him in the Japanese version.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. And I still think the dialogue is amazing in the English version. The way that they made everything connect and make sense, even though they changed the entire personality, or not entire, but they changed
A
personalities
lot
a
of the
lot.
dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah. The entire dialogue is different to me.
Did you notice any difference in like the tone of voice that was used?
Melody was very sarcastic the entire time. It felt like she was like, "Oh, chosen one, please go get these balls." And like, also she said specifically something. Oh, she said, "Well, most of the chosen ones come back
Yeah,
alive." And I'm like, she did not say that in Japanese.
she did not. She just
No,
said like you've got to do it properly. Something like
yeah, yeah. The Japanese one is very focused on ceremony, where she's like focusing on playing her part, and then suddenly she just like grabs the pear from his hand and eats it and sits down, and that's very much not culturally appropriate in this moment. She's not. She's supposed to be still the shrine maiden. She's supposed to be, oh, please save us, and then go back and do her part. Instead, she just like takes a load off in front of everyone and very much shows that she's like not really as interested in this as everyone else is.
So is that why in the Japanese version her sister kind of yells at her?
Yes, her sister is she's saying like with just the name, she's saying, "What are you doing? That's not proper. You need to like be a proper maiden," just by saying Melody. And her sister's waving her off like, "It's fine. It's just a moment, you know? It's not that big of a deal." And the English one, it was the most people come back alive thing that got her to say Melody.
So interesting. I didn't recognize, like, I didn't realize that nuance, that difference.
It's, yeah, I think the more, maybe just even just being in Japan, you'll see it a lot where there's no actual explanation behind why something is not appropriate, but you understand that if you're doing something or culturally, like you see it a lot in schools where if they're like going and graduating, they have very specific ways to even walk. They have to specifically step up the stairs. They have to stop at a specific place. They have to bow very specifically at a very specific angle. And then they have to use an appropriate hand. And the entire thing is very ceremonial. And so I think that most children understand right from the moment that she grabs the pear and sits down that she is breaking ceremony.
Hmm. That's so interesting. Because yeah, like when I was watching the English version, like I didn't think about that. I just thought, okay, maybe her sister's yelling at her because of that comment, like that really sarcastic comment of most of them come back alive, right? Like I would be like, whoa, right? But I didn't think about the ceremonial aspect of it. But what I did notice throughout watching the whole movie was like in the Japanese version, there is more focus, emphasis on the ceremony and like I would even say the religious aspects of the shrines, the temples, and we'll get to it later. But they also talk about the birds, right? The three legendary birds being gods of fire, water, and ice and such. So that all of that part, that nuance, is stripped in the English version.
Yep.
Why?
Why? I guess the biggest reason why is having any sort of any religious concepts within a children's show is kind of almost a no-no when you're showing it to the kids. So when you're expressing these kind of very religious tones, especially I would say in the 90s where everything felt like it had to be Christian or nothing, when you start to express like a whole different religion, even if it's fictional, first, the kids of English speaking countries might not necessarily care, especially I'd say in America. Let's focus on like America for that.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us really care about the ceremony and the religion and all that type of stuff when we're kids. It's kind of like an afterthought. Like it's the reason why the story's moving, but it's not really the main focus for us. We want the action. We want to see Ash be the chosen one. But when you take in all the very specifics and all the nuance, like you have to think about how you translate that nuance into the Western one. And it comes back to the like high context versus low context cultures, wherein like in Japan, it's understood just by their culture that what they're doing is very religious and very ceremonial, and like they don't have to explain anything. But if you were to take Melody's actions and not have her say something sassy like, oh, most people come back alive, and she sits down and then says, suddenly her sister yells at her, then we're thinking about, why is she getting in trouble? What did she do? And it becomes like a thing where it's hard to explain and hard to understand, because it's like, well, unless maybe their parents are like, no, you can't sit down during this thing or something. It's just a moment, especially back then, where it was easier to erase concepts that might be difficult to explain rather than try and make sure it makes sense in the translations. Well, not that I think that's acceptable, but it was very common.
But it still worked, I guess, with the story framework.
Yeah. I think the
Wow.
sassiness of Melody as a character really helped with the religious nuances that they were erasing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Wow. That was such a good discussion. We're at 43 minutes right now, and we haven't gotten to the meat of the story yet. So much I want to show.
Shit, we might have to go and do this again at a later
I
time.
know, we need to make it a series. Right.
Sorry, I do talk a lot, especially when it comes to like culture and anime. I love this stuff so much.
I know. Okay, we're gonna move on to our next part where Team Rocket is
Oh my god,
like
the heroes of everything.
in their ship. Yeah, they are the heroes, literally. Yeah, so we're gonna catch up with Team Rocket and what happened to them after their ship crashed.
言われても
Gosh. I just want to see. Oh yes.
今のは
ジョリボーイ、ピカチュウも。
All right. So that was
Amazing.
the Japanese version.
I love the awkward silence as they're running down the stairs and the girl's just standing at I know without watching the English version, she's going to be saying something. She's got to be saying something.
Really?
I just have that feeling she's going to be like, where are you going? Or something like that to fill that awkward silence of them running down the stairs. If it's not there, cut this out.
Oh, okay. Let us see. Let's see. I'm gonna share the other screen now.
Oh my god, I love Team Rocket. They're so funny.
So I'll play from a little bit before.
Dude, we can take my boat, Ash.
Then let's go! You coming, Misty? No thanks. If you want somebody to do whatever you want, whenever you want, you should find yourself a girlfriend.
God,
Wow.
it's too good.
Pikachu! Pikachu!
Fugu!
Hey, give me back my hat!
Didn't say anything.
Oh, she didn't say anything.
Our ship is ruined.
I'm sick over it.
I'm seasick over it.
Wasn't that
The twerp?
and Pikachu too?
Amazing. So she didn't say anything, but they had a very impactful soundtrack piece that made the entire thing not sound awkwardly silent. So instead of her being like, where are you going? It was music.
You noticed too, right? Like in the Japanese version, they didn't have like as much music
Yep.
and background sound. Like I feel like I need to rewatch it again because I didn't notice that before. But in the English version, it's so much more
Bouncier.
Yeah, like very action-packed feeling.
Mhm.
But I want to focus back on Team Rocket again because they are like the MVPs of this movie, I swear. So in the Japanese version, they say, no matter what you
They
say,
are indestructible.
indestructible. Okay, but what do they say in the American version?
My God, I don't even remember. I'm laughing so hard at the music. I think I have to rewatch that too. But if you want to say the line, it's fine.
Because in the American version or the English version, they say, "Our ship is ruined. I'm sick over it. I'm seasick over it," right? So like it makes this great pun of he's being sick, like getting
Mhm, mhm.
nauseous, and then Meowth is getting seasick. Right? I don't know. I just find it so funny.
Yeah, I think the line is definitely funnier in the English version than it is in the Japanese one. Although the idea of a broken ship being the thing that they're still using and then being like, "We're unstoppable," is really funny as an adult. I think as a child, I think I'm sick over it. I'm seasick over it. I think it's way funnier.
Yeah, I think it's like the wordplay just makes it a
Mhm.
little bit funner. But yeah, the jokes in the American version.
They're amazing. I love them. Also, I
Um,
love the use of Jatty Boy or Brat Boy
yeah, I
versus
didn't know
Twerp.
what is that.
It's just literally Brat Boy. Like it's referencing him being like a little kid that's like too spunky. But like Twerp it's so perfect. It means exactly what you want it to mean.
And I feel like it's a very well localized, like a very American term.
It
If
is. It's
anybody
so
understands.
good. What a twerp.
All right. Our next clip is also kind of short, but I think you will find it quite interesting. What do you think's there?
I think I know who's there. There they are.
Wait, did you hear the Japanese?
If one god abandons you, choose another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the Japanese version.
That's a raw line. I like that line.
And then here's the English version.
What we won't do.
For Pikachu.
All right, super short, right?
Super short, but we have so much to pick up from that, from the music to the line.
They changed everything.
They did.
Okay. So what's the first thing that you noticed?
Well, I mean, the line in Japanese is very, as I said a little bit earlier, it's raw. If one god abandons you, then choose another god. It's very much like, well, their ship failed them, so they're just
Mhm.
gonna hop into this other ship and use it. But the meaning behind it, it's like, don't let whatever happens to you, divine retribution or whatever, affect you trying again, which I think is a really strong, like,
I do like that.
yeah, it feels like if you were to use it in someone's, like if someone's cursing out their god and you're like, how could you do this to me, God? And you went up to them like, if one god abandons you, choose another. It's like,
You gotta
what's
go to Buddha.
raw? Yeah, it's like raw, but it also wouldn't work in most situations. And I understand why they did not use that in the English version, because that would be like, what? It wouldn't make any sense for a kid. Like, what do you mean choose another god? There, what? Why are you referencing
But it
God?
fits for kids in Japan.
Because Japan, while believing that they are very atheist, they really do think they're atheists. They have a very hard wired belief in Shintoism, which is like the belief that any object can become a god if enough faith is put into it. So yeah, if you have a very important toothbrush and you like worship it and give it a lot of like offerings, then it could become a toothbrush god. Like everything in the world essentially has the ability to be a god. It's very nature-esque, like
Oh.
trees and the wind, and there's many gods. So the idea of them saying choose another god isn't that weird when you take their Shintoist, very cultural Shintoism into mind. And I don't think the kids would even blink. Like it's like, oh, just choose another.
So it's already like a part of their cultural understanding.
Yeah, like
Whereas if we said the same thing in an American context, It doesn't because American is very, I think, majority still, right? It's still very Christian, Catholic
Yeah.
type of religion. So, and
And
it's
even
quite
then,
divided.
yeah, and even then the religions that aren't the ones that are like increasing, like Muslim, are still one God Muslim. And it's like don't believe it. Very heavily focused on believing on one God. You cannot
Mm.
believe in another. To do so is like to disrespect your God and to like you're sinning by believing in a different God. So to use a line like that in a Western culture is it would not be accepted. I think a child, if a parent heard that, it's not focused really on the child as much as it's focused on censorship and
Mhm.
parents. If a parent heard that line being said to their 7-year-old kid, let's say, they'd be like, "This is sacrilegious. This is the devil's work," which there are already people saying that about Pokemon because it's monsters fighting,
Oh,
but this is the devil's work. We can't let our child watch this. And that would remove a whole demographic of a country that is already very focused on one God, no matter what religion it is. A big portion of America is one God focused.
I think that's a really good insight.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting in the English version, they changed the whole line. What did they say?
What we won't do for Pikachu.
I know, like
That's such a
they
good line.
changed it into like a what do you call it, a rhyme, right? Like
Yeah.
fun. So I thought that was really funny too.
Yeah, I think it's actually funny. Whereas the Japanese one, I didn't feel like it was very funny. It was kind of just like, oh, we're gonna keep going. Everything that so far in the Japanese version has sounded very much, we're just gonna keep going. We're gonna
Mhm.
keep going. Whereas in the English version, it's like carp insurance. What we won't
Like
do
they're
for
the
Pikachu.
comedic humor. They're just there for the
They have a
laughs,
lot
and
of
I love
humor.
it.
That's a
I
good
love
one.
it so much.
I also love that they rhymed it.
Yeah. And then later on, I don't think we have time to watch this scene, but I'll show it like in the editing. Later on, there's a portion where Team Rocket says, Pikachu will get you in English.
Pikachu,
And
I choose you. Pikachu, we'll get you.
yeah, yeah. And then in the Japanese version, they say the exact same thing. I don't know how you would say in Japanese.
Pikachu tsukamaeru or something like that. We're gonna catch you.
Uh, Hold on. Maybe I'll show it to you because I just think it's so great how they like have the same exact line.
Getto
Um,
suru.
yeah, 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 yeah. Wait, okay, wait. I found it. I found it.
Okay, okay. I mean, again, if you want to do another one for this, it's fine.
We'll continue for now. All right, so here's the scene. Really short. Let's watch it.
Their stupid cloak.
ジャリボーイ
ピカチュウ。
ニャーたちはついてるニャ。
よし。
ピカチュウ。
ゲットでちゅ
Cute.
So cute.
That's really cute. Getto dechu. That's really good. That's
Right?
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why like in English, they pretty much use the same line, we'll get you, right?
Yeah.
With ending with the chew.
That's really good. That's really good. And I love that like saying getto dechu sounds very childish. That's what a kid would say, a little kid.
So it fits with the audience as well.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Getto dechu. I love, by the way, Meowth or Nyarth in Japanese. I love
Yeah.
all of his little soda nya.
Yeah, and they translate that in Meowth's voice as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love Meowth being the like gangster cat and the way he's like speaking like a gangster, but those nya puns are peak in Japanese. They're so good.
I will take your word for it.
Oh my god, I loved that though. That was a really good one. Getto dechu. We're gonna get you.
Yeah. All right. We are at like almost a full hour now.
I'm sorry. I talk so
There's
much.
No, this is great. This is so much fun. And there's still so much more that I want to talk about. So like let me just share my
Three-part.
screen really quickly. Like we only got to this part right here, like 20 minutes into the movie. There's still 53 more minutes
Oh my god.
more that I want to dissect in this movie because I just think it's so great. Like there's so much localization work that was done on this movie and so much thought. And
We
there's
didn't
so
even
much.
get into the death-defying parts.
The what?
We didn't even get into the death-defying parts where we're like trying to save the birds and all that type of stuff. And I'm sure there's going to be localization in
Yes.
there.
Yes, yes, yes. There's so much more. So, would you be interested in making this like a series? We'll make it a
Sure.
3-part series on Pokemon localization.
Of course. It sounds so fun. I'm having a blast.
Okay. Me too, because this is so funny. The movie is so great. But anyways, thank you so much for coming on to this first episode of the series of Pokemon localization. It was so much fun having you on, Nicole. And like, thank you for providing your insights on the differences and nuances of Japanese language, but also culture that I didn't know about before, and maybe our viewers will also find interesting. Do
Maybe
you
they'll
have
even find
any?
things that they don't agree with. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
things in that. So
Yeah. So, do you have any last minute things that you want to say before we end our episode today?
goodbye, Ash. We'll miss you.
We're still rewatching him. He's still here. He's with us in our
It's
hearts
true, but he's with us
forever.
forever. But
Yeah.
no, this was a blast. Thank you for having me. I can't wait for a part 2 where we're gonna go even more in depth with this movie.
I know there's so much more to do. And then I don't know, we could even make it a longer series if you wanted to. We could talk about other movies too. The limits are endless.
So many Pokemon
Possibility.
movies, so little time.
I know.
That would be
All right.
so fun. All right.
So we are going to end our episode today with just like 20 minutes of worth of screen time.
So much to talk about.
Yes, but we will continue talking about Pokemon and localization of the Pokemon Movie 2000 in our next segment. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for having me. See you next time.